Welcome to Enlightened, the enlightened journey of life. I am your host, Jen Hamilton, and it is an honor to have you here. I am a conscious life coach and women's empowerment mentor, and I activate a potent level of self and soul inquiry with my clients, which initiates deep and lasting transformation in all areas of their lives. I am here for the full human experience, authentically and audaciously sharing my magic with the world. On this podcast, we're all about mastering life on the way to enlightenment. And as we are here having a human experience, we might as well embrace it all. We play in the space of what is real and tangible, just as much as we play in the space of esoteric and metaphysical. You'll be ignited by deep conversation, whether through my own personal musings, interviews with incredible thought leaders around the world, and everyday divine humans sharing their soulful stories. Thank you for being on this journey. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightenment Podcast. I am your host, Jen. And today on the show, I am joined by Renee La Tour. Renee is the business strategist behind the Ticket to Freedom brand that helps coaches remove themselves from the day-to-day of their business by delegating. She's a full-time traveler and part-time entrepreneur, coining the term Fancy Nomad to describe her unique lifestyle. Growing up in a broken home, cursed by drug addiction, Renee decided to choose freedom instead of suffering. She was the first in her family to graduate high school, paid her way through college, and took the entrepreneurial route to create multiple businesses while traveling the world full time. Renee believes that everyone can have their own freedom right now instead of waiting for someday. And she is fired up to share her journey and help others find their own path to freedom. Renee's story is so inspiring, and I'm so excited for you to hear our interview. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome, Renee. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, you're a remote business strategist and you've been through a bit of a journey. Tell us about what it is that you do and what got you into this work.
Yeah, I'd love to share. So, it has been quite the journey. So, when I first started my entrepreneurial, again, not to overuse the word journey, when I first quit my job back in 2016, I really had no idea what I was going to be doing. I just knew that I didn't want to delay my freedom. I knew that although my job was great, it was comfortable, it was promising, I had a great pension program, all of the great things. I didn't have a boss that I hated or anything like that. I just knew that I didn't want to live the rest of my life that way. I didn't want to live the next 20 years commuting to work, sitting in the sea of cubicles, um, basically delaying my freedom until when I retire, until I'm like old and gray. And then I can go see the world. Then I can go on trips. Then I can go do all of the things. So when I quit, not really knowing what the heck I would do, I dip and dabbled with all kinds of things from life coaching to selling homemade deodorant. I was doing all kinds of different things, just trying to figure out what it would be. And I ended up joining my partner, who is a loan broker. And when I looked around in my life and I tried to see, who has the most freedom, who is really living life on their terms, it was actually my life partner. So it's kind of funny looking back and seeing like it was right under my nose. And so we joined forces and we started running the business together. And it was about 6 months in. Again, we had different plans because we thought, okay, we're going to have a brick and mortar, we'll have a bunch of people. That's like the traditional way to run a loan brokerage. And 6 months in, we took a trip to Europe for 3 weeks and we realized we could run the business from anywhere. And it took us taking that trip, which sounds funny now because that was mid 2017. And if you told anybody that you're running your business from anywhere, they might be a little confused. But now, thankfully, with some silver lining to COVID, it's more acceptable to be running your business from anywhere. But at the time, it just didn't even occur to us. Like it took us taking that trip to realize that we could run the business from anywhere. but it wasn't at all an ideal situation. We were, even with Europe having a different time zone than United States, where our business is based, we were up like late at night trying to talk to clients, trying to figure things out. It did not make sense at all. So I knew that we had to make some tweaks in our business so that we could run it remotely, so that it could be optimized for location independence, and we can travel a lot more than just a few weeks here and there. But I knew that it would take some time. And so that took a few years to really get the business completely remote. And it wasn't really until the end of 2019, so it was about 2 years later, that the business was completely optimized for running it from anywhere. So since then, I've lived in Africa, Asia, Europe, and I wake up to things being done because I have a team back home in the States that does things while we're sleeping. So the business does run while we sleep. And again, I don't like to at all make it sound like it's something that happens overnight. It's a journey. But because it's given me so much freedom to have systems in place, have a lean team in place, and really have a business that does semi passively run itself and only work a few hours per week, I became very passionate about helping other entrepreneurs do the same thing. So it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. Like if you're running your business online, there's really no reason why you can't run it from anywhere or have whatever freedom you want and have your business look like whatever you really want it to look like. So that's kind of different for everybody. For me, it was traveling. For me, I wanted to travel full time. I'm currently in Lima, Peru. Our business is located back in the States, and that's how I wanted it to be. For other people, it just looks a little different, but I became very passionate and excited about helping people discover what that freedom is and designing their business around it instead of continuously trying to force your life into your business and working like crazy.
I love it. What an epic journey that you've been on. And it sounds like you've got some awesome travel stories as well, like being able to see so many parts of the world and essentially, still get paid to do it because you're still running your business. It's a very new paradigm, isn't it? That we've stepped into where we're setting up our businesses that we can run remotely. That we can work from anywhere, and it's kind of the norm now, isn't it? Like for me in my business, like COVID catapulted me into online. I had no choice. I couldn't see people in person anymore, and what that did, it opened me right up to seeing clients all around the world. And it unlocked new things within me. And it just became the normal thing that if I didn't have people coming in person, that was fine. That's all we could do. So we pivoted. And it's been the biggest blessing. So I totally feel you there. I'm really, really curious, Renee, what was the catalyst for you for going, hang on a second, I've got this really good job. I'm getting paid well. I've got a good boss. Everything's set up nicely, but I don't want to do it anymore. Was there a particular moment that you can think of that sort of like dropped you in and went, no, 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 this is not for me anymore?
Yeah, it wasn't something overnight, even though it felt like it was, because that's what it looked like from the outside, kind of. But I know looking back that it was when I graduated from university or college, as we call it. Um, that was in 2013. So I was actually going to school full time at night and while I was working full time during the day. And so it took me a little bit longer than most people, but once I got my degree, I had all this free time to really start learning about myself. Real school, real education, like where you take that personal development journey, and it's different for everybody. I was in my 20s and I started to look into Tony Robbins and started to listen to Marie Forleo every day on my way to work. Like, so I really started immersing myself in my own development and my own actualization and learning about what was important to me. And I started practicing meditation. I started practicing minimalism. I went from somebody who was the biggest consumer I knew. Like I wanted to make sure I had tons and tons of pairs of shoes, wristwatches, handbags, like just consuming to as much as I possibly could. And I had $25,000 in credit card debt to someone who now I only have a carry-on and a backpack. Like it's incredible to see like my journey of just becoming a minimalist and then becoming an essentialist, which is more about focusing on more of what I want and less of what I don't want. But it was through that process of really learning about myself and getting to know myself that I started realizing, what do I really want, and asking myself good questions. Why do I feel certain ways about money? Why do I feel certain ways about what what a career looks like, what work looks like, what's worthy, what's not, like asking myself all these questions. And one morning, I swear, I woke up, I did my meditation. And after my meditation, I said to my partner, I'm not going to work today. And he was like, okay, sounds good. See you later. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to work. And it was like, I had no plan. I did not figure things out. I was like, okay, I'm going to map it out this way. It wasn't pretty at all. It was very confusing. I thought maybe something was wrong with me physically, mentally. Like, why don't I want to go to work? And it was like all of this kind of soul searching. And it was over the course of a few months of me kind of figuring out, is this really what I don't want? And having to decide, like, yes, this is something I really don't want. So it was not something quick. It was something over like a few years of realizing, that I just wanted a different lifestyle than what I was used to and what everyone else around me was doing. It just didn't feel in alignment with me anymore.
Wow, that's incredible. I've had the feeling myself before of like quitting a job and not having any sort of backup. And even though it's like there's so much room for fear in there, I find it really freeing as well. I get really excited for then the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, to present me with an opportunity to go down a different path. And sometimes you just have to rip the band-aid off and say, I'm not going back. This is not for me. This is not serving me. This is not in alignment with the person that I want to be or the life that I want to live. I'm done. And it's in that moment, once you decide, that it's almost like the universe gets to work and it says, okay, all right, well, let's go a different avenue. What is it that you do want? And then, you ask yourself the questions. You ask yourself, what is it, what is the kind of life that I want? Do I want to stay stuck working in a job, the 9 to 5? Do I want to, take my couple of weeks leave every year and be done with it? Do I want to get all the way to the end of my life to retirement and say, oh, that was nice, and not truly get out there and live? And that's, that was one of the catalysts for me getting into business, years ago, is that I was like, I'm done working for someone else. Like, I want to do things on my terms. And it's so funny because it's the old saying, like, you work for someone else, 40 hours a week, but when you work for yourself, you work 24/7, which I've
Yeah.
noticed. I've noticed being a business owner, there's just always a beautiful to-do list and always things to do and always things that need my attention, which I love, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's definitely an interesting journey.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm always like, I worked a 9 to 5 for 10 years, and I met incredible people. I had incredible mentors. We worked on really cool projects. So I'm always very grateful for all of those experiences that came in those 10 years. And it allowed me to go to school at the same time and really pay my own way through school. And I did a lot of cool, amazing things. I always say, like, there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with corporate. Like, I know a lot of people kind of bash that in the entrepreneurial world, and I don't subscribe for that. Like, I just think that it's important to know what you want and why you want it. And for me, I feel like thankfully people are waking up, I think, to the fact that you are not just this work. You are not your work, and that is not your identity. What you are, a lawyer or a doctor or an entrepreneur or whatever, that is not who you are. You are so much bigger than that, and you are so much more expansive as the human creature that you are. And it's not just the end all be all. And even entrepreneurs get very obsessed with their identity in that way. And so I'm always, if this is making sense, I'm always in the camp of, like, it does not matter what you're doing. It all matters on how you do it. Like, it's all about how you do it and how you live your life and how you run your business and how you decide to interact with the world that matters. And so me, it was never like, oh, I'm going to be free. It was like, yeah, I'm going to be free. And it doesn't really matter what I do for occupation.
Yes, yes, it's deciding, isn't it? It's deciding, and that's the thing. Like I've had jobs where I have absolutely loved them, and I've thrived in them, and I thought this is the best thing ever, at the time. And I either had to stop working because of babies or moving or whatever it was. But there are some seriously amazing careers out there where you can go to work for someone else, but you get to decide how that looks for you. If it's lighting you up, if it's if you're lit up by what you do and how you do it, and that you're, living in alignment with your values. If that is the corporate world, that is amazing to find something like that where you can continue to feel like that. Absolutely. I know so many people that have corporate jobs and, are, so career driven, and they love it and they thrive, and it's amazing to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just like to say, like I don't like choose one or the other, or of course, I don't regret at all my decision to quit my job. I think that it was one of the best decisions I ever made because I've had so many experiences that I just wouldn't otherwise be able to have. And I didn't realize at the time how important travel was to me and how expansive it is to me, and how it plays such a big role in just the person that I am and how I experience life. And I really wouldn't want that any other way. So, and I know I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I would have been working that 9 to 5. So it really, like you said, it really comes down to what do you really want, and being really clear about that. Because once you are clear about that and you allow the universe to show you those opportunities, your world opens up and you get to decide, like we're saying, how you want to show up, but you are dictating what that environment's going to look like, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've been through a bit of a process with having to surrender and, do that inwards journey. What does surrendering mean to you?
Yeah, this is a beautiful question because although it kind of changes a little bit as I go through and walk through my life, it really is just about allowing for whatever has happened. All the experiences that I've lived through have implanted something within me, whether deep or on the surface. And as I walk through life, things will continue to happen, and that stuff that's stored inside of me will get hit. Well, certain things, experiences that I have that aren't so fun, things are challenging, some things that come up, that stuff that's within me is going to get hit. And for me, surrendering is all about being okay with that. Being okay with the darkness, being okay with the pain, being okay with me having a shot to my ego, or not having an okay day, um, all of that, and just saying, this isn't who I am. I am not my pain. I am not my trauma. I am not my bad mood. I am not, the frustration. This is an experience that I'm having. And surrendering is all about loving those parts too, taking the bad with the good and loving all of it and saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I am on this planet spinning in the middle of nowhere. I didn't get to choose to be here. It is a miracle that I'm freaking here. And this is incredible. I am in awe of this existence. Like, how miraculous that we are here right now. And it is just surrendering to whatever it is. My neck hurts. Okay, it is what it is. Let's move on. Let's do the best we can. Let's do whatever tools are available to us right now in our toolbox. We'll see what they are. I was telling you before we got on, I said, okay, let me grab some lavender, just whatever you have as a tool. And that is just surrendering to the moment, like, and having that gratitude to know, like, this is crazy that we're even here.
Yeah, it is when you think about it, and it just brings you right home, doesn't it? I'm really curious. Do you have a spiritual practice, like you mentioned meditation? You've sort of talked about the inner work and stuff like that. Tell us about your spiritual practice?
Yeah. Oh, girl, it's been a journey. Sometimes, the great thing about about spiritual practicing is, I often love to say, like, life is the spiritual practice. It doesn't end on your mat. It doesn't end in a retreat. There's no, okay, let me do 5-minute meditation, then I'm good to go. No, life is the meditation. Like, how are you going to react to the person at the corner store, how you're going to, speak with your children or your spouse or whatever. That is all part of your spiritual practice. But the thing that I love about practicing in a more structured way, whether it be meditation, yoga, journaling, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, plant medicine, I love it all. Like everything, I'm like, yes, 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 I love it. And I'm open to it. And I'm like, yes, try it, see if it's for you, because these are all tools that you can tool yourself in your toolbox. So even this morning, so to answer your question about my spiritual practice, it's different, like literally all the time. Even this morning, I woke up and I had some anxiety, and I felt it like here in my chest. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have like a special meditation that's just for, what I need right now, just for anxiety. I'm going to do breathing specifically for my anxiety, like a 4-7-8 breath work, specifically for that. And I really feel like I need some journaling on gratitude right now. So I'm just going to journal about gratitude. And so for me, because I have practiced so many years, different things, different modalities, different journal prompts, I have these tools that I can pull out when I need them and pull out and use them straight away. So that's just something I want to mention. But I do have something currently that I do every day. And that is, when I wake up, I go straight to exercise. And sometimes it's more aggressive than other days, but that is just for me right now in my season of life. It's something that's really working well for me. And then I do affirmations every morning and every evening. And that's just me basically listening to my own voice, brainwashing myself over and over again. Like that's all that. If you're wondering, I can go into explaining what affirmations are. I'm sure your listeners are very well versed in that, but it's brainwashing, and I do that
What's
twice a
your
day.
affirmation today?
So I have a bunch of them on repeat. So I use an app called ThinkUp. I don't know if you've heard of this app.
I haven't. No, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant. It is so simple, and it's super cheap. I don't even know what the fee is, but it's really affordable. And I think that you can even do a free version. It'll cap you at like 5 or 10 affirmations. So for me, I have a bunch of them, and the app mixes them up, and there's like some background music. So once you record them, you're good to go. And then I go in there and I change them every so often. So for example, I have affirmation that says, I'm a successful, powerful entrepreneur. This one's one of my favorites. I am fierce, fiery, and bold. I am a leader. I dance with my fears. I believe in myself and I have the power to succeed. A lot of my ones currently are a lot about um, being successful and coming into this identity of someone who charges, someone who doesn't give so much away for free, someone who, and then I have some other ones like I experience joy in everything that I do. So that for me, that one is very specific to being able to find fun in everything. So, like, for example, if you asked me a year ago, I'd be like, oh my God, there's like these 5 things I hate to do in business. And now I'm like, again, brainwashing myself, like, no, this can actually be fun. Like, there's so many ways that you can just switch your mind about it, and it actually becomes a lot funner, and it's more flowy. You don't have to have so much resistance or restrictions around it.
I love it. I'm a huge fan of affirmations. And really, what we're doing is creating new neural pathways in our brain, in our subconscious mind. It's the more we do it and the more active we are in doing it regularly and, essentially loading up the new good stuff, the more we're actually going to, first of all, start to believe it and then start to see it from there, because that's how, like, we are literally brainwashing in all of our lives. That's what, the hypnotic state is. Essentially, it's the same thing as brainwashing. So if we're going to get brainwashed, we want to do it with the good stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm a total believer in it, because it's like I'm very action oriented. So I'm like, just take action, even if it's messy, even if you don't know what you're doing. I'm all for it. But you have to couple that with the affirmations, the brainwashing, because your brain has to believe it. And I know, like, of course, I'm not like a neuroscientist, but I love listening to all the science behind it, because it just makes me like, oh, yes, that's true. That's right. it makes it less like hairy fairy. Like, no, there's actual science in this, that you are making those neural pathways and you're making them deeper and deeper in your brain, because your brain has been telling yourself all of these stories all this time to keep you safe. And so when you start doing the messy action, your brain is going to tell you, no, no, that's not a good fit, that doesn't work here, we can't compute. And that's where the affirmations really become powerful. Like all the ones that I tell myself, like, um, I continuously think of awesome ideas, like just things like that, where it makes me feel more creative. And it makes me feel like, oh my God, I have no ideas. I don't, of that story that I've told myself for a long time, like, I don't have no ideas, or I can't think of anything right now, or I'm not creative. Like, I'm rewiring that to not tell myself that crap anymore. And like, instead tell myself, and they're simple, right? Like, I'm willing to step outside of my comfort zone. That's a simple one, but it's
Mhm.
like one that I have to keep brainwashing myself with.
Yes, absolutely. How can you bring your spiritual practice into business and work? What does that look like for you?
For me, I feel like because there's really no separation, it comes down to how you treat other people. So for me, I'm very big in co-creation and collaboration, and I love working with other people and on teams. I just work so much better in that way. So for my spiritual practice, most of it has comes down to how I treat others, and treating other people with respect, with dignity, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, instead of thinking, oh, this person's out to get me, or someone's going to hurt me, or like all of this nonsense. Instead, it's always an opportunity for you to let your ego down and allow yourself to open up to the other person, because oftentimes we think that people are out to, and oftentimes we don't think this, but like your biological nature is to protect yourself and to keep yourself safe and make sure that you're not going to die, but that that's not true. You don't need to feel that way anymore. And so oftentimes when you're interacting with people, it can be almost like human nature and an immediate reaction to think in the negative sense, or to think, oh, this person's doing this on purpose, or this person's making a mistake, or this person, whatever gnarly thoughts you can have. And for me, spiritual practice comes down to making that switch and having a positive thought instead, and thinking, no, everyone is doing their best. Like, everyone is just walking each other home. We're all trying our best. We're all in this together. Like, no one's deliberately trying to do anything negative. So I think that's a big piece of it. And then the other piece of it is, again, going back to like ego death, and like making sure that I'm consistently not taking things personal, and realizing like, this is not about me. I do not need to prove myself. I don't need to make people understand me. I just need to show up as best as I can in that moment, and let bygones be bygones. And otherwise, I feel like if you are constantly letting your ego sit in the driver's seat, you really aren't showing up as your best. It's oftentimes very defensive, and you're on the defense. You're always trying to figure out, oh, I got to make sure I sell this person or make them understand me, instead of seeking to understand, instead of seeing how can I be of service. It's like a very servant mentality and a very humble mentality when you come from it from that point of view.
Yeah, I love it. That's really beautiful. And it sounds like you sound very similar to how I am, being able to, weave in spirituality into business, into life, because the thing is, it's all one journey, isn't it? We can't just be one way in one area and just, drop the ball in another area. We can't be like, oh, okay, well, in my spiritual practice, I'm going to be all loving and all of that. And then in business, we just are a downright asshole, And so I love that you mentioned, just how it sort of weaves in for you as well. Coming back to your lifestyle, Renee, so you mentioned that you're living in Peru at the moment. Are there any sort of like misconceptions that people have about your lifestyle, sort of, looking in, seeing that you've got this, it sounds like an incredible business that supports you guys to move around and travel. What are some of the, misconceptions that people have come up with around your lifestyle?
Yeah, and I think there's several. The first one is because I do call myself a minimalist, but again, more of like an essentialist because it's not about less, it's about more of what you want. And so people often think that I'm very frugal, which is funny because I will just like don't even look at the price tag. I'm just like, yes, I want it. Or, because I'm more interested in experiences, oftentimes like money is not an object. Like I really do just want to experience life and I don't want a scarcity mentality about money. So that is one of the big misconceptions is because I don't own a lot of material things that I must be very frugal. And scarcity mindset and thinking about saving money all of the time, and a little bit of that is true. Like I do like optimizing, like I do like a good value. I don't like just I'm not like frivolous, per se. I do like to make my money grow for me and like invest and all of that. But I definitely wouldn't consider myself frugal or like cheap in that way, or just trying to do like the least amount to get by. So that is one thing, like when it comes to minimalism. The other thing is that like I'm always on vacation. And so it's like, oh, because you're traveling full time, like you must be just kind of like really flighty and not really um responsible for anything. You're just kind of like always on vacation, always on the beach. And I'm like, no, actually I travel really slow. And I often call myself like a slow mad. This is like a new play on words for nomads, but I travel as slow as possible. So I'm here in Lima. I've been here for 2 months and I'll be leaving next week to Argentina and I'll probably be there for 3 months. So even though I don't plan my travel in advance, like I don't know how long I'm going to be in Argentina. I just know 1 month at a minimum. I do like to actually go somewhere, stay as long as possible, have a routine. I still want to like wake up when I want to wake up and like have a full day of um, adventure. And also that does involve work, that does involve focus time, it does involve having like really good time management so that I can maximize my life and be working on something and creating something and challenging myself in that way, but also exploring and enjoying the place that I'm at. So I would say that's definitely another one, is that I'm just like, oh, that must be nice. And it's like, well, it is nice, but also like, it's just a change of atmosphere. It's not like, yeah, it's not like completely like, oh yeah, I'm just on vacay.
I love it. What would you say to anyone that's listening that's thinking, oh my gosh, I want this nomad, slow mad, minimalist, essentialist lifestyle? How would someone go about getting into this? Is it, selling up everything, selling their car, selling their possessions, and then just booking a one-way ticket somewhere? Do they have to have, a base somewhere? Do they have to have some money in the bank and, an established business? Tell us, if people just wanting to start out, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I'm really passionate about this lifestyle. I am like, I know it's not for everybody, but for a lot of people and myself included, it has been life changing. Like honestly, I love it so much. And again, not for everybody. And a lot of people think that they will just like grab their bag and go, and that's just that. And maybe that does work for maybe someone who doesn't have anything. That wasn't the case for me. My partner and I we both had houses. We had two houses, two cars, houses full of stuff. And so for us, one of the first steps was getting rid of our stuff. And that happened long before we became full-time travelers because like I was mentioning, I read a couple of books about minimalism. And I listened to a couple, like, I think it was YouTube. It was like a couple of people I was following on YouTube and I was like, oh, that is for me. Like, I just want that simplicity and I want my life to be very organized. And I knew that I didn't want all this stuff. So I started getting rid of items way before I started traveling. Um, so yeah, that's definitely part of it, getting rid of all of your things. I would say definitely first and foremost, make sure that it's a lifestyle that you do want. Cause it's, again, I feel like people look at other people's lifestyles like, oh yeah, that sounds really amazing and perfect. But it's like, why? Like, why do you want that lifestyle? And I think that's important to sit with. And then if you want to get started, before you even like decide, yeah, I'm going to sell all my stuff and just move overseas, have a test run first. So for us, like, because we had the business, we actually had an office and everything. Our test run was just going to San Diego for the summer. So I'm based out of Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, and that is also where all I'm involved in three businesses. That's where all three businesses are based as well. And we knew that the summers were like where we wanted to escape because they're just awful. And so like usually people escape for like the winter if it's snowy. For us, the summers are just insane. So that was our first try at this whole like just living anywhere lifestyle. We just drove to San Diego and it was only a 6-hour drive. And it was difficult for me. Like my whole car was full of stuff. This was before I was just with my carry on, obviously. The whole car was full of stuff. I brought my printer with me because I was like, I don't know, I had some attachment to a printer, which sounds ridiculous now. And so it was just like starting off slow. And so we spent 3 months in San Diego and it acted like we were back home in Arizona. No one needs to know like where you are or whatever. Like again, it wasn't as acceptable as it is now. And so I would say just start off with baby steps, something like that. Like maybe it's just going away for the summer and you're not like just going to get rid of all of your stuff straight away. You don't need a base. Like I don't have a base. I did up until a couple months ago have a storage unit with a bunch of stuff in there. And we actually cleaned that out when we went back home a few months ago. So I don't have anything. I would be open to it. I would be open to having like a house that I rent out when I'm not there or whatever. But for me, like I was very happy that I sold my house when I did. I don't have to worry about renters or anything like that. It's just very nice and freeing. Like I don't have to, there's really nothing I have to worry about back home. So for me, it works. I know a lot of people who, have rental properties and things like that, and they love that as well. So definitely an option. I would just say start small, go somewhere for an extended period of time to see how that would go. And then, of course, having your business set up for that is where I love to help people because it sounds like it's easy, but I would tell you from being up at 3 a.m. with clients in Thailand, it's not sustainable. So you really do need to have your business set up so that you can run it from anywhere and not be stressed out about it, or think to yourself, oh yeah, I could run it from anywhere, but you're working all these odd hours and you're disorganized and your client service goes way down the tank because you're not managing it. So those things can happen. So I feel like when you have a solid plan and you say, okay, this is the trip I want to take for a month or 2 months, and I really don't want to be working the same amount of hours, you can set your business up to enable you to do that.
Absolutely. It sounds incredible. Is there anything that you would love to impart on the listeners as far as wisdom goes, either around this lifestyle, around the work that you do, around spirituality?
Yeah, I would say to slow down, definitely. I feel like that has been such a large piece of my happiness just overall as a person, as someone living this human experience, is just to slow down and really spend time with myself. I think oftentimes we have any distraction we want, right? Especially with like our phones and all the opportunities and information. I mean, if you are in a privileged situation where you can, run your business from anywhere and have a podcast and have like, you can go out and teach a mastermind, like you can do all these amazing, incredible things, but oftentimes it's used as a distraction. And oftentimes more information doesn't actually raise the quality of your life. And it's more about what you do with it. And so when you take that time and that space to sit and really ask yourself, what do I want? Like, what do I want to give? How do I want to serve? How do I want my day to look like? How do I want my life to look like? What do I want to be doing in 5 years? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And just give yourself a little bit of space to do that. I feel like it just makes you a happier person and a better human being because you're coming from that space of like, okay, I know I have that clarity and I'm becoming her or him. So that's the one thing I would leave the listeners with today.
I love that. And one last question for you, Renee. In your view of the world, what is the meaning of life?
Hmm. Okay, that is super deep. I would say that the meaning of life. Oh my gosh, what direction do I want to go with this today? Ah, the meaning of life is just to be. And I say just because it's like, seriously, guys, enjoy. Enjoy
Mm.
it. Enjoy, like we talked about, the darkness. Because if you're not enjoying the darkness, how are you going to really enjoy the light? it's how is the universe actually even give you the lightness, really? So enjoy it. Be present as much as you can. I know I speak from experiences. If I'm not in the mood or my thoughts are getting the best of me, it can make it a little bit challenging. Just bring yourself back and remind yourself, like you said, what is the meaning of life? If you're resonating at all with me, like, it's just to be,
Mm.
just be and enjoy. But I want to hear your answer now.
Oh, no one's
Share
ever
yours.
asked me that. It's so funny. I saw this thing going around on, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram a few years ago, and it was like, ask Siri, what is the meaning of life? And she gave like legitimately the best answer, and it stuck with me ever since. And the meaning of life is to give life meaning. So you decide what it looks like. You decide, like, my favorite affirmation to myself is I am, it is. And it's right in the center of everything. It's in the center of the dark and the light, the high and the low, the in and the out, the up and the down. And so the I am presence is, all is. And it is, I am all of it. I am none of it. I am everything. And it's just like, okay, that is the way it is. I can't change a situation. I can't control things outside of me. It just is what it is. And so that, like, for me, I just come back to that often. And, the meaning of life to me is to have all of these experiences, to live to the fullest in whatever that looks like for each individual person. So for me, it's loving deeply. It's, I've got a lot of travel booked this year, which I'm so excited for because there's parts of the world, I haven't seen. And there's just chatting to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, that lifestyle sounds incredible. It's to show my children around this beautiful place as well. I've got two beautiful children who are 8 and 6. And, I say to people, like, I'm a vessel and a tour guide. Like, I got them here and I'll show them around, but ultimately I want to, pass on the tools for them to live an incredible life, and whatever that looks like for them. It doesn't have to be what my expectations are, or, the expectations that I had for myself or that others had given to me. It's really writing my own story. And so, yeah, so the meaning of life to me is to give life meaning.
Absolutely. And your perception does create your reality. And
Oh,
however
it
you
so does.
want to decide it is, it is. And like you said,
Yeah.
I am that I am. It's the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. And holding it, with such conviction too, that the depth of belief that we need to go to really, believe that it is all possible, that we can do whatever we want. We can have it all. We can have this incredible life. We can be entrepreneurs and build businesses. We can be successful in careers. We can have families. We can have love. We can have wealth. We can have health. All of it. It's all right there waiting for us. We have to decide, and we have to reach out and say, that's mine. I'm embodying that. And so I love
Mm-hmm.
it. We've definitely touched on so many epic pieces here. How do our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can come hang out with me on Instagram, fancy_nomad. And I also am on LinkedIn. You can just find me, Renee La Tour. And
Amazing.
yeah,
And we'll link to all of that in the show notes as well. Renee, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Enliven podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
thank you so much, Jen. It was a blast.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enliven podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enlivened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enliven, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.